Previously on the Spielman and Hooley We Tackle Life podcast.
Yeah, who would have thought that the Ohio State Michigan coach? Who would have thought that? Who would have thought the Detroit Lions could rally from a double-figure deficit crazy? Maybe they were auditioning for you. And who would have thought that former players could have just come off with 5 seconds to go? Well, I mean, if you knew Greg Williams was their defensive coordinator, you'd know that. He had been a defensive coordinator. That's all. He's got to be all season rush teams in situations like that.
No buts. No. Wasn't fireable offense. Greg Williams out. Bye-bye.
I wasn't surprised. I think Greg's I think he's a really smart guy. And as far as football goes, X's and O's. But all guys are smart at that level to coach in the NFL.
Of course.
I think the most important thing that I've learned in kind of observing and being in TV, I don't know if you know this or not, but how have I grown as a person? And this is a little bit about what this podcast has always been about. You know, we're pointing out our weaknesses and where can we grow and how do we grow. And you and I have certainly, I think, been very forthcoming with all those.
Tried to be.
Yeah. And for me, I'm so much a better listener at my age now than I was at 30.
Very true.
I just listen, and I don't think I have all the answers anymore. Like all, you know, I don't want to say cocky, but confident guys and that feel that feeling of invincibility. Don't you tell me, I know what I'm doing. You know, I think that some of my experiences in life and just biblically speaking, being, you know, it's slow to speak, quick to listen.
Yeah.
And in fact, I took it to the point where I actually have a guy that reviews my broadcast every single week and writes me a report. And what I do with that is there's a lot of things in there that I say, he's got a great point. There's a lot of things in there, well, I disagree with that. And it's just listening to it and processing it and thinking about it and using it to my advantage of, well, this could make me better. And there's so many things, especially in the broadcast world, that I've learned that have helped me become better. And there's a couple simple things, if you're interested. Tell why something worked as opposed to why it didn't work. It's a little bit more what you're selling. You know, it just makes sense.
It does. I mean, all feedback is relevant. It is. It's relevant. You can think about it and you can choose to discard it or not. But I mean, you can't just discard it out of hand. Right. I wonder if Greg Williams, and we've buried the lead here because Ohio State.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's fine. He got fired, and we talked about it on the podcast the other day. We'll get to the Ohio State Michigan cancellation and our fixes and what the Big Ten ought to do. I do wonder with him if he has been on a mission to exact revenge, prove something, whatever, since Bountygate. If that took him, you know, you're at a place in your life, career, where you either go one way, you change, you learn, you adapt, you maybe become a different person, or you become more of the person you already are. Looks like he's gone that direction.
I think he has a philosophy, and he's going to ride or die with it. And he's, you know, he's gotten jobs, and who knows, he'll probably get another job. I just don't see Greg as being a position coach. I think the only thing he settles for is a coordinator. And if you hire me as a coordinator, here are my rules, which is fine. I mean, that works for some people, you know, and I do believe that Adam Gase probably should have called that timeout and say no, because
let's make sure we know what we're doing here.
I actually saw on Twitter where Greg and, you know, players and coaches sign autographs during training camp. He was signing an autograph, and somebody had a video of this, Bruce. They said, what's your favorite defense? As he's walking through his fan base signing autographs. And he goes, all out zero blitz. Every team has an all out zero blitz. And that's it. You know, he said that in the commentator, you know, snarky or funny or clever Twitter can get, said, well, he told us it was coming.
Yeah, he did. That's right. He sure did. We've told you the Ohio State-Michigan game is coming. It's a date on the calendar everybody looks forward to all year. It's typically the last Saturday in November. It used to be the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It doesn't matter when it's played; it's special, and it was supposed to be played this Saturday.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be played this Saturday, but it might be played the following Saturday, I guess. You never know. The Big Ten would be silly not to exhaust all avenues. The thing I said yesterday when you and I chatted, thank you for coming on the show on The Answer.
98.9, 5 to 7,
5 to 7. Thank you very much. Appreciate the marketing.
That's all I do. Give.
There's no reason to be locked into any arbitrary decisions that you made in October. A 6-game regular season standard. We're going to play the Big Ten title game, West and East, on December the 19th. There's no reason to be locked into that. It's fine to make adjustments because the teams have had to adjust all season. Sure. Week by week, day by day. It's fine for the conference to make adjustments.
So I put an acronym to my thoughts on 2020 on how everybody should react. So and the acronym is recognize, acknowledge, and respond. Mm-hmm. And what's the best response that you can have. And because of the fluid situation, there's no other way to describe it. Every season is fluid. And by the way, with all the stuff that's going on, and whether we like how they did it or didn't do it, I commend everybody that is trying to keep things as normal as possible during a very abnormal time. Mm-hmm. And congratulations to the OHSAA on what they were able to pull off with the high school football and the NFL. I mean, the NFL, what they're doing is just remarkable to me, and the concessions that they're making. But that's an example of two groups that, are natural. They're together, but there's natural rivalry between owners and players and management and all that stuff, right? The players and the owners got together, and the owners and players came up to agreement. Okay, this is the best way we can do it, and we all have to sacrifice something to get this season in. And a lot of it is, you can rip Roger Goodell as much as you want, but to me, his leadership has kind of led the way on this, and it's really been fun. And I just can't believe I'm going into week 14 still being able to call an NFL game, and it's a credit to a lot of people. But for the Ohio State Michigan game, the adjustment, why not? It's something that is tradition. It's something that's been happening for a long time. It gives Ohio State the 6th game, and it keeps something alive where, for the first time, I think you were telling me last night on your show, this would be the first time they haven't played in how many years?
103?
103?
No, wrong. Yeah, 103, 1917.
103 years.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is a chance to kind of, in a small way, I get it, it's sports, all that, but kind of punch COVID. I don't want to interrupt your music.
I don't know what's going on.
What do you?
Try to look up the Free Press site. Won't load on my laptop.
What are you looking for? The Free Press.
Ward Manuel.
Ward
Manuel, the AD of Michigan. I want to see if he's apologizing to Herbie.
But you don't believe that, do you?
No. That he should apologize to Herbie?
No, I think Herbie got caught up in the rivalry.
Herbie got caught up in the rivalry. His Ohio State card doesn't come out very often. Not even every year. Not even once a year.
Yeah. But
it came out there. The tap out thing, that's what set Michigan off.
And I can understand why that would set Michigan off. Because just put yourself as Jim Harbaugh or Ward Manuel or whoever. I talked to a coach about that situation. He told me that he would challenge a guy to a fight. Challenge Herbie to a fight if he said that about his team.
Well, here's the thing.
Because you're calling them cowards.
I know. But it does offend you more if there's an element of truth to it.
You guys are skeptical. I understand that.
I'm skeptical that they were at least not thinking it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Look, they're talking to Harbaugh, the contract thing. He's got 1 year left. I was wrong.
No, you were right on your show last night.
I was right on my show last night that he does have 1 year left. It's just that nobody ever lets a coach go into the final year of his contract. So basically, if you have a 7-year deal, year 6 is the year you have to get.
Tell them why,
the extension, because you're just crushed in recruiting. You can't. You have no.
You're
you can't make any promises with anyone in recruit. Well, sure, I'll be back. Don't worry, everything will be fine. the truth is, if you go into the last year of your contract, the last year, you're coaching for your job, and everybody knows it, and no recruit's going to cast his lot with you. And they're already not recruiting well.
Well, since there's
you know,
early recruiting or early signing dates coming up in
December 16th.
Yeah, I mean, you're all over that. I don't follow recruiting like you do.
Next Wednesday. Oh, I'm all over the recruiting.
I'm sure your many jobs at the Press Pros magazine will have an article on recruiting.
Well, I have one on the Ohio State win over Notre Dame last night.
Do
you want to go read it? Yeah, I was up.
I usually read your stuff
till midnight last night reading it, but that's why. So Harbaugh. Andy's supposed to make $8 million next year. So there are a couple levels to this. Number one, you never let a guy go into the last year. Number two, he's not an $8 million coach at this point. He's not.
No.
And so they have to have some clarity on him. And let's just face it. His chances of getting a 3-year extension to go with the year he has left. So he's got 4 years, so he can tell any recruit, look, I'm signed for 4 years. I'm signed for the whole time you'll be here. His chances of getting that are better if he doesn't play Ohio State than if he plays Ohio State and either just loses, period, and goes to 0-6, or gets pounded by 30, which is the spread, 30, or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Got beat by 29 last year,
which is possible.
Which is very possible.
I wouldn't be surprised if Ohio State wasn't motivated to do that. I mean, that's the sport, though.
Ohio State's got playoff arguments to make. They need to, when they play a team they should dominate, they need to dominate them.
Yeah.
Regardless of who it is and the respect you have for the rivalry and whatever else. So here's what they could do. Big Ten. I suppose they could put Ohio State against Northwestern this week.
Well, you said Illinois is playing Northwestern.
Well, they're supposed to, but I'm just saying, here's what they could do.
Didn't the ACC do something like this?
The ACC took a game off, I think, Clemson's schedule.
Yeah.
So that Notre Dame, Clemson, and Miami would all play the same number of games. So you'd have a comparable, but they'll all play 10 regular season games.
It's almost like a reality virtual video.
Yeah.
I don't like that matchup. Let's put this one together.
So the thing with Ohio State and Northwestern playing this week is you can't really play that in Indianapolis, can you? I mean, I'm sure the Dome is booked.
I don't know.
Lucas Oil's probably booked. Okay.
I don't know. They played a Sunday night game or Sunday afternoon game in Arizona, and then turned around and did a Monday night game in Arizona. Everything's possible.
But let's say they play Ohio State Northwestern this week somewhere. Well, you could play Northwestern and Illinois next week. Yeah. There's no reason. That's a rivalry game. There's no reason why. Like next week, Illinois, let's say they're fourth in the West. I don't know where they are. They're supposed to play the fourth team in the East.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't have to play that.
No.
They could play
all rules
whoever
are
they
out.
want. All rules are out. Ohio State, they could just try to get them a game this weekend. You just try to get them a game. Get them a game to meet the 6-game standard, which that's arbitrary, but they could try that. Purdue and Indiana Purdue has COVID issues. They haven't called the Purdue-Indiana game off, but they have COVID issues. I don't think Indiana and Ohio State need to play again. That's not fair to Ohio State. They've already played them and beat them. Plus, Indiana doesn't have Michael Penix.
I don't think Indiana wants any.
I don't think Indiana wants that either.
They held their own against Ohio State and it was a good showing. They made a nice comeback in the second half.
Still in the top 10. They're in place for a nice bowl. They don't want to play Ohio State. But you could put another team with Indiana. Let's say Maryland and Rutgers. I have not looked at Indiana's schedule. I don't recall them playing Rutgers. Maybe they did. But you could move it around to free up a team that hasn't played Ohio State to play Ohio State.
Right.
Maryland would be the one.
I wonder what
if you can.
I mean, is there any volunteers? I don't know if I'd want to. If you're a coach, think about it.
I don't know. Iowa and Wisconsin are scheduled to play, so Iowa Ohio State be an attractive game.
Yeah. But
that's a rivalry game. That's the Bronze Pig game. Can't not play the Floyd of Rosedale game.
Almost as big as the Paul Bunyan Axe game.
And the Illabuck. So
Oak and Bucket.
Okay, so that's what they could do. They could move a team around to play Ohio State. But the most sensible thing is Ohio State's already proven they're better than Indiana.
Right.
Northwestern's already run the West. The Big Ten athletic directors meet today, and they just say, look, Ohio State can't play because of Michigan. So who cares if they played 6 regular season games? Just let them play in the Big Ten title game against Northwestern next week.
It benefits the Big Ten for Ohio State to get to the playoff because then, it's they want to be well represented. And, it's just been such a crazy year that you almost have to say, look, everybody knows Ohio State's our best shot. Just find a way to get them into the playoff. Find a way to get them another 6 game. Just find a way to get them into the playoff. I believe that. I don't know if you do, but I think if you're having an honest conversation in that AD room, in which Barry Alvarez basically has come out and said exactly what I just said without saying it, right?
Yeah.
So
Madeline is not happy. First of all, she says good morning, and then she says them not playing really sucks. Now, our boy Brett, our longtime friend Brett, he's on top of this. He says, so OSU loses a Michigan game at home this year. That means OSU has to travel to Ann Arbor next year. Michigan gets 2 straight at home. I think we need to petition the Big Ten that since Scum was the one that canceled, OSU gets the 20 and 22 games at the shoe. And he's putting it on me to get that rolling.
Does Maryland want to sue Ohio State? Because then wasn't the Ohio State Maryland game was canceled because of Ohio State COVID issues?
Correct.
Everybody.
No, that was Maryland COVID issues. Ohio State Illinois was canceled.
Because that's what I mean. Everybody's
Ohio
got
State issues.
some COVID issues.
Yeah. Now, actually, no. I looked this up yesterday, and Nick Hauser says Indiana has COVID issues of its own. Well, Nick, we all know Indiana has multiple issues. So
what they don't have is they do have great basketball warm-ups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How they in hoops this year?
I don't know. I haven't looked at them yet. I don't like to stress myself out.
Are you covering OSU hoops?
I am. Yes.
You're all excited about that, aren't you?
I am. Last night I would have been at Notre Dame, but they gave Ohio State's media only 2 credentials. So the Dispatch gets 1 so that their 2 p.m. deadline, I don't know what good that does except getting them there for online coverage.
2 p.m.
They have a 2 p.m. deadline. Like their sports stuff for Wednesday's paper has to be in at 2 p.m. Tuesday.
Really?
Yeah. And then the other person who had a credential wasn't there last night.
Took your credential. You would have been there.
I would have been there.
It's not that far of a drive. I drove on my way to Chicago last week. I drove to Indiana.
But at any rate, they had a nice win. We'll get to that. But look, back to Ohio State. Look, who cares if they play 6 regular season games? It doesn't matter. And Ward Manuel, the Michigan athletic director,
there you go,
says, I don't believe that anybody, Ohio State or any other team, should just be punished by decisions we made looking at 8 games and saying we got to play 6, not knowing the effects of what happened to them or their team. So I'd be open, and I think the conference would be open, to having a discussion about whether or not we will make adjustments, whether or not schedules will be adjusted to get Ohio State to play enough games with 6 or play in the championship game of 5. Ward Manuel speaks.
Can't be that hard.
Speaks truth. No, it can't be that hard. Except you have to get the glacial Big Ten to think on the fly.
That's a great adjective, by the way.
Yeah, they're just like,
slow.
Oh,
I mean, we have to change something.
Yeah, wait a minute. We just,
we're not going to be like the SEC or the ACC.
Ward Manuel goes on. He says, we made decisions months ago. Why did it move on me?
Yeah.
Now, about 6 out of 8 games, not knowing where this pandemic would take us. We were hoping to play all 8, but we've adjusted. We've changed. I don't think we should just hunker down and say, well, we said 6, so that's going to be it.
Well, that's kind of their way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. The conversation deserves to happen. This is an unprecedented time for everybody, and we need to make sure we're flexible. Another thing the Big Ten's not very good at.
Yeah.
And move to make decisions based on the data we have.
Recognize, acknowledge, respond.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know who we should thank for all this? Because
China?
No, not that.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
they
sent the virus.
I'm not talking about that anymore. We should thank the University of Nebraska.
Yes,
for being at the forefront for the Big Ten to actually move their glacier just a tad, enough to get whatever amount of games in. And
we appreciated it so much, we gave them the toughest schedule in the Big Ten.
I know.
Shut up over there, Nebraska. Don't tell us how to do our business.
It almost did seem like they were being.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hey, how would you like to open at Ohio State? Yeah.
But still, I mean, I just think, their passion, and that kind of got everybody else rolling and on the run. And so, I appreciate. I talked to Kevin Kugler because Kevin went to Nebraska Lincoln, which is, I think, the formal name of it, and Kevin lives in Omaha. And we talk about that. I said there wouldn't be Big Ten football without Nebraska pushing the envelope. Wouldn't you agree? Then everybody else got behind it. So
there were people, I remember doing questions from people like, Ohio State should sue Ohio State. And I said, they're a loyal member of the league. They're not.
I remember that conversation.
They're not going to do that. It's
and
not in their nature.
And we needed the Big Ten, or football fans, college football fans, needed somebody like a Nebraska to step up and be the voice and take the shot. And they did. And I'm so happy that they did, because I do believe, although it's not an ideal year, there's not one college football player that's not grateful for at least getting some experience of playing this year.
Yeah.
And it's important to me. So thank you, Nebraska, for doing it and stepping up.
Ward Manuel said yesterday that
I can't wait to read this.
He and Harbaugh will sit down after the season to discuss an extension. My guess is that's going to happen this weekend. I just think they have to make an announcement before Wednesday signing day.
December 18th, or right? 16th. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So a week from today, is today the 13th?
Today?
No,
today is the
whatever. There's my Ohio State math
9th.
degree.
Today's the 9th. Yeah. So that's what I think will happen. I think they'll.
He has to.
Look, they can make an announcement that he has a 3-year extension, and 3 weeks later he can change his mind, and they can change their mind. Now, the one thing I don't believe, somebody yesterday, and here's the tough part about being a reporter, is when you're told by someone who would know that 5 NFL teams have approached Jim Harbaugh, that's a good nugget, and you trust the person and you know that they would know. And so you have to balance, am I being played here, or is this really genuine information? I don't believe, I can believe that the reporter was told that without believing that 5 NFL teams have really have an interest in Jim Harbaugh as a head coach.
It depends on who told him that. Like what he get, what I don't know.
I mean, here's how it could go if it's done for agenda reasons, to make Harbaugh look better, because his record 49-22 is fine. If the 49 included 2 or 3 wins over Ohio State, it's a different 49-22 than 0-6 against Ohio State, 0-5 against Ohio State, and 3-3 against Michigan State. The person is, telling the reporter that because he's trying to help Harbaugh, or Harbaugh's told the guy that, and then Harbaugh,
I
got to take him at his word.
I think there's a big difference there's an interest in a lot of guys, and obviously if there's an NFL opening, you do your due diligence on Jim Harbaugh. You just don't look at his record at Michigan. You look at, okay, what he did at Stanford, what he did at the University of San Diego, what he did with the San Francisco 49ers. Then that's how you make your determination. And, there's an interest there. So it might be just, he's one of 20 guys that we're interested in, right?
I mean, maybe the Bears have interest in it.
No,
he's
I know.
A former Bear.
I know who the Bears, I think I know, because when in Chicago, this is all over the place. Pat Fitzgerald, I think, will be the next coach of the Chicago Bears.
Wow.
At least that's everybody's saying that out of Chicago. I think he would be a pretty good head coach in the NFL.
Okay.
Because he has the qualities of he's an outstanding leader, in my opinion. And I've watched the guy work and talk to him, and I just think it's such a good fit for the Bears. And so different than what they've had, and Pat's, I don't know if you ever follow him on Twitter or watch him, or a little bit about him. I think you covered him.
Yep.
He's Chicago through and through.
Yeah.
He's not here. He loves everything about Chicago. So that would probably be, I would think that would be his dream job. I think he had a shot at the Packers last year. He was either runner-up or lost out to Matt LaFleur, or when that job was open, by the way, 2 years ago.
Well, that's a pretty good job too. I don't know if a Bears guy would want the Packers job,
But I think Pat's so Chicago.
Yep.
You know, you and I have when in our 2 Men in the Basement consulting firm.
Mhm.
Every time there's a coaching change, one of the things we always ask, the first thing if we're talking on air or off the air, does it make sense? Is it a fit?
could you see it happen in your mind's eye? Can
Yeah.
you see a
And
guy
you know
walk up
what?
to the podium?
You actually, I didn't really buy into that, but I remember when Brady Hoke got the job. No, not Brady, Rich.
Mhm.
Rich Rodriguez who I love Rich. He's a great guy and worked with him and talked to him. But I remember you saying, and you were adamant about this, and I didn't think much about it until it actually came to fruition. That Chris, that's not going to work. It's not a fit. It just doesn't fit. It just doesn't make sense. And I've come to believe that there is a certain fit that you have to have where a coach and everybody within the university, athletic director, president, players, assistant coaches, trainers, everybody's got to be aligned philosophically and rowing in the same direction. And I'm not sure that was the case when Rich was up at Michigan.
Yeah, it was not. And they have not been the same since. They were not the same in the latter years of Lloyd Carr, and they have not been the same since. And
I mean,
I don't know why the Harbaugh thing hasn't worked. I'd have to be inside the program to understand that, because he does fit. That's the oddity of it, is that he's the perfect fit.
He is. I mean, you can't draw a better Michigan coach than Jim. But you're right. Nobody knows exactly why some things don't work, some does. But I think, you can look at one point, and this is maybe my own theories or personal belief, but the quarterback position in football, in college and the NFL, it's everything. It is. It's everything. And if you can't find that guy, you're never going to get over the top.
Can't get to step two. And
that's why what's amazing to me is, Urban's ability to identify quarterbacks that he wants, whether it goes back to Josh, the kid at Bowling Green. Josh Harris at Bowling Green. Yeah. He fit what he wanted to do. Goes back to Alex Smith at Utah.
Yep.
And Tebow at Florida. Whether you like, and he had Cam Newton at Florida with Tebow, by the way, before there was some issues with computer communications.
Allegedly, reportedly.
And then then he hit the trifecta with Braxton and JT Barrett and
Cardale.
Yeah.
All right. Nick wants to know, if Chris was the GM of the Lions, who would he hire for that job? I assume he means the head coaching job for the Lions. Who would you hire?
I don't know who I'd hire, but I would look at a number of guys, and
you got to find a fit. You got to find for an NFL job. For an NFL job, it's not the same as a college job in terms of fitting a college culture. Where did the coach go to school? All this stuff. You're looking for, in the NFL, you're looking for relationships between everybody in the organization, or what are you looking for? What should an NFL GM look for?
The head coach, the first thing you look for is a leader. And Mike, this is just, and I've talked to Rick about this over the years.
Mm-hmm. I remember Rick said he talked to Army generals about leadership.
Well, let's talk about what their theory is. Not their theory, but their line of belief and thinking is that they identify leaders by somebody that's good at everything and might not be an expert in demolition, but he's good at demolition. Might not be an expert sharpshooter, but he's good at it. Then that leader will not be afraid to hire anybody that's a possible threat, or not be afraid to hire experts around him, then motivate them to do their job for one common core, one common goal. And that's how they identify leaders. And they also identify leaders in a sense that, your character and your leadership truly shows when everything's falling apart, and what's your response going to be to that. If you want to talk about fits, I don't know what Sheila Hamp Ford is looking for.
She the owner of the Lions?
Yes. Okay. I don't know what she's looking for. But
is there any truth to the fact that if you have a defensive guy, you have to go offensive guy?
No, not in my mind.
That often happens.
It does, but it depends. And you know what? Here's the thing. I don't think I'm not saying that's right or wrong. because that has worked and does work. But it's what do you want? What are you coming off of? What are you looking for? And for me, that head coach has to be the dude. He has to be the dude, and he has to create the energy. He has to do everything and be that pulse of that team. Now, it might not be visible to you or to me or watching on Sunday, but when you walk into that room or you go out to that practice field, you know who's in charge. And you know the players know. And I'll give you a perfect example of a guy that will get a second chance that I think will do a good job if he gets a second chance is Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
Todd is down at Tampa now, I think, with Bruce. But, he got caught up in the Jets, and the Jets have troubles.
Yeah.
Like the Bengals are having some
Like the
issues
Bengals
now.
are having some trouble. We'll get to those Bengals in a moment. I wanted to know if that NFL thing has changed, because I'll be honest, when the Browns said they were going to hire Kevin Stefanski and then hire the GM, I thought, well, you got that bass backwards, But it used to be the GM was the big dog and everything else had to fall in line under the GM. Rick has to have his guy, and John Dorsey has to have his guy. Whatever. Now the league seems like it's gone toward the head coach, and the GM falls under what the head coach wants.
So,
and then, I don't think of Stefanski as the dude. I don't think of Matt LaFleur as the dude.
Go out to that practice one time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's the insight you bring.
Well, you go out to the practice, or you sit there. The beauty of working at TV, you get a little bit behind the scenes. You don't get everything, but you get a little bit. Then when you hear how players want consistency, and in my opinion, this day and age player, right? You can't dog cuss a player today. You just can't. That's not this generation. That generation probably died with me when that was the last time that was all out there, right?
Yeah.
There's just a different way. Because of social media, everybody is so protective of quote unquote their brand, myself included. You don't want to be berated or look disrespected. I mean, that's just not something how it's done. And so it's important to identify each individual player, what he responds to, and it's the coach's job to figure that out, to get the most out of the player. But when you look at Kevin, he's like people that will listen won't be, but he never wavers. He's not a roller coaster.
Flatline implies maybe he's not exciting. Would you say he's consistent?
Well, I've talked about consistency. If you're going to be like Mr. Energy running up and down the sidelines, players will respond to that as long as it's every single
all the
day.
Time. Yeah.
You can't pick and choose your identity as a coach, because players shut you off because they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
They just got to know who you are, then they'll respond to that.
Yeah.
But I knew Kevin was a fit. I think I said it on the air.
Oh, you did. You were all about it. Yeah, you were all about it. You said he was ready and he'd do a good job.
And the coach and the general manager, somebody has to be in a room on a roster, and somebody has to say, this is our 53. And the coach, and 9 times out of 1,000, they might disagree. But somebody has to be in a room saying, I have the authority to do this. I think this is the best way forward.
Is that big of a deal, though? Because aren't the
arguments free agents, basically. Yeah.
I mean, aren't the arguments about the guys in the 52nd and the 53rd spot? You're usually not arguing about who the starting quarterback is.
Right. No, but I don't believe the GM has. I mean, he can make suggestions on who plays, but that's a coach's decision. It's his team. That's a coach's team on game day. That's a coach's team on a practice field. That's a coach's team in the meeting room. Yeah. And the perfect marriage is when those two guys put their egos aside and the GM says to the coach, all right, what's our identity? What offense, what defense, what type of player you want? What's going to fit into your systems? Psychologically, culture-wise, what guy do we want? And the coach will tell him. And it's the GM's job to go get the coach the best possible guy that the coach wants. And I also think like assistant coaches should be involved in the evaluation process, not in a decision process, but be involved in the evaluation process. And so, it really is a collaborative team effort. And if it's not, and if it's two separate areas, it'll eventually fall. Together you stand, divided you fall. In unity there is strength, and there's no greater example of that than in an NFL headquarters, in my opinion.
All right. We will draw 4 names right now for COVID-19 relief. You mentioned that today is the 9th of December, means next Wednesday is the 16th. And if next Wednesday I'm talking to you about AUIinfo.com, it won't do you nearly as much good then as it'll do you right now, because you have a week left in open enrollment to find the perfect health insurance for you. Whether you're an employer trying to recruit great employees and provide for the people who make your business run, or whether you're an individual, maybe an independent contractor like a lawyer, a plumber, a consultant, a caterer, something like that, you have many healthcare options. You might think you're stuck with just Obamacare because you're a single person in business, but nope, you have many options. A group of one is what it's called. AUI told me about that, and AUI can tell you about it when you go to their site, AUIinfo.com. They're a health insurance brokerage. Zoom call, phone call, in-person meeting, they can do it all. Very convenient. The expertise is invaluable, but you get it free because AUI is paid by the insurance companies, and they're not incentivized to bring you one firm over another. They'll fit you with the best. Healthcare is a weird field. The health insurance companies all count on you needing help, and so the cost of a consultant is built into the policy. You're already paying for it, so you better use it. AUIinfo.com, AUIinfo.com. All right, our winners today. George wins for Rob. Katie wins for Emily. Joshua wins for Nancy. And Kevin wins for Ashley. So we had nominees coming from April 11th, November 21st, and November the 18th, and October. So there you go. Your name stays in the hat until we draw it. So that's how that goes. This time of year is where you're sending out corporate gifts, Christmas gifts, thinking of people across the country. Everybody's buying their Christmas gifts online this year. A lot of people are. Rather than make Jeff Bezos richer, why don't you help somebody in an impoverished country by buying your coffee from Hemisphere Coffee Roasters?
We are coming, I just counted, we are coming to the end of our 40 weeks.
Okay.
Our journey.
When is it? Next week?
Yeah, next week will be the
Great. So you got one more week to get a nomination.
Yeah. And yeah, so please do it.
Yeah.
And on that, I got to tell you, some of the emails and stories we hear, I'm going to speak for Bruce here. I will take the liberty because I know this man pretty well. It has been such a privilege for us and a blessing for us to be in a position to do this. And this is really cool. It was God inspired. And that's how we came up with 40, the amount of money that we raised in the 40 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And for the responses and just the appreciation, which it's not mine or ours to keep, it's ours to give away when God provides. Open your eyes and see where you can be the hands and feet type thing of God. And so it's just, as we wind down on this, it's just been a remarkable 40 weeks for you and I to do this, and humbling and rewarding, and not in a rewarding way where you pat yourself on the back and say, good job, a rewarding way in saying that, man, I was able to do something that God provided me to do, to be and reflect Him, not only in our words, which you also hear in the show, but more importantly, in how we acted and how we have been able, in a small way. I get it, $250 isn't hitting the lottery, but it's something hopefully that provided some relief for somebody.
Well, here's confirmation of that. Email to SpielmanHooleyPodcast@gmail.com, and that's how you send in a nomination. This one comes from, I'm not going to use the name because I'm not sure if I should, but says, I'm thanking God for you and the $250 I received. Bruce, although we've never met, I followed your work and greatly appreciate your protection of the unborn and sharing your faith. Chris, we've met on several occasions. He goes through how, and then he says, "Thank you, Chris, for your unselfish act in selling your physical memories for the benefit of me and so many others in the area. To me, it's a present-day example of Luke 9:1-6, to go and trust God to meet the needs. Those things that are important, but not as much as sharing the gospel with words and actions. In closing, sometimes the words thank you feel so painfully inadequate in comparison to the kind act. This is one of those times, as I am unable to find words beyond thank you to express my raw feelings. I pray you can see between the lines and into my heart. I thank God for you, and with thanksgiving for your generosity."
I absolutely see between the lines, and as Bruce was reading that, I got a little bit emotional because of people that have served me over my life. And, I have often felt the gratitude where I know that thank you wasn't enough, not even close. It is not in this case. You're welcome, by the way. But I know that feeling of, and that just makes me feel like, okay, we did make a difference with somebody. Not we ourselves, but God inspired, God used us to make a difference in somebody's life. And when that happens to you as an individual, I can't think of anything more confirming than the feeling you get. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. I was just going to say that there's an art to sensing God's prompting to give, and there's an art to accepting God's provision through others. Right. And if a person who's like this gentleman who wrote so kindly and thankfully, if he had been proud and said, no, I'll be fine, he would have broken the chain of blessing that God intends when he prompts someone to be kind and minister to others in whatever way they can, with a phone call, with a text, with a check. It can be anything. It can be a phone call at the right time. There's a chain of blessings in there. The person who acts upon God's prompting feels closer to God and feels like they were in the spiritual sweet spot for that time. The person who receives the blessing, there are also people around both individuals who see that, and they're lifted, strengthened, moved. So it takes a sensitivity to act upon a prompting to minister, and it takes a humility to receive it and be thankful for receiving it, and know that later on, instead of being on the receiving end, you may be prompted to be on the giving end.
Yeah. And can I make one other point on that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's our podcast, so we can do whatever we want. I was thinking about this. Do you remember how, when we started doing this, that how many people wanted, well, I can give you this to do, I can give you that to do. And I said, no, I want you to take care of, you go out and you do that.
We did have people who wanted to know, how can I give to COVID-19 relief, which was great.
And we told them, go find somebody or somebody close to you that will need it and take care of it.
Yeah.
And because this was our thing, and I was really prompted, because I preach all the time too. I'm like all you other parents out there. I don't say preach, but I'm always trying to pass on the life lessons that I learned. And I heard a sermon in church years ago. I don't even know the Catholic, Methodist, non-denominational. I forget what church it was, but it was on sacrificial giving. It's easy to give, but it's
out of your abundance.
But it's when there's something meaningful that you're giving up for a greater good or somebody that's in need, the feeling of gratitude from God that you receive for doing that, and knowing you're doing it for God, is just unbelievable. Because I got to be honest with you, like, I really struggled selling those rings. I struggled mightily, But I was so happy, and I think I hand delivered both. I was so happy to see how cool that this person thought it was, and I know, and by just having a conversation with these people also are very generous with their abundance, or and so I just want to encourage people to don't be afraid to sacrificially give. And there's a big difference between giving and sacrificially giving. And I know because and that's why one of the things that frustrates me more than anything, when I see churches in affluent areas that have trouble meeting their budget, or the priest or ministers or whatever up there begging for help, and they're very open. At least my experience has been, you're very open with your congregation, or the congregation has access to, okay, here's where the money is. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure your church has probably experienced that at some time.
I get a little uneasy when there's multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars committed to a church remodeling, refreshing. It can be fine.
It depends what the motivation is.
It can be fine, as long as you're not cutting corners on the mission side and the giving side and the ministering
Absolutely
side.
correct.
Yeah, and treating the people on your staff
well,
right.
I just think, like, just say a church remodel. Like, there's a churches can outgrow.
They can, and you can also need a refresh to, like, there's a thing that, you want to become more welcoming.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So there's a place for it.
You're talking to a guy that goes to, 150-year-old Catholic churches around the country.
Yeah.
So I know that there's refreshing that can be done. But I just, the whole point is, God's got this, man. And sometimes you feel like you don't, but when you get an email like that, or if it hurts for you, and you just got to trust God that some way it's going to come back in abundance. Not looking for it to come back in abundance, but it always seems some way to work itself out, doesn't it? Hasn't that been your life experience?
Absolutely.
Have you ever been let down in that?
No,
regard?
I mean, we've lived. In the last 2 years, we've lived on that. God will provide.
You're my motivation for that.
We've made a commitment. We've made a commitment about something related to our kids for next year that we know is the right thing to do. We just don't know how we're going to quite pull it off, but we know that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So the question is not, you don't start with the question, can we pull this off? The question is, what's the right thing for our kids? Yeah. And then you say to the Lord in prayer, Lord, we feel like this is you telling us this is what we need to do for our kids. And so we're trusting you that you'll help us pull it off.
It's funny that you say that, because in just with those rings and the COVID thing, and God was speaking directly to me, and that's where you're like, what? Those?
Yeah.
How many of those are in the world?
Yeah, right.
But that's when I say, without hesitation and without reservations, I'm on it.
Yeah.
I trust.
Yeah.
It's the big trust thing.
Yeah.
And that's, once you get there, there's no more comforting place ever in the world to be. And it's in that book right there. I've had a couple experiences in my life where I believe God was very, 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 very clear. One was a dream or a vision that was very clear about trust. Mm-hmm. And can I share the message now? Because I think it's important on this. And I know we're not talking sports here, but this is more bigger to me. So you'll have to stay with me on this. It's hard for me to talk about, because it was such a pivotal point in my life, and it changed the man that I am. So the last time I rushed Stephanie to the emergency room, because I knew the doctor told me there was an incident at home, get her to the emergency room now. And we're at Ohio State. She's in the emergency room. Doctor She was sleeping, pulls me aside, and he said, "Look, man, marginal at best here, Chris." And that's being optimistic.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I knew it was just a matter of time. And I wasn't shocked or floored, but my worst fear was coming true. So I remember this. I walked past my old dormitory. I walked from the hospital through campus past my old dormitory on Park Hall, which was on 11th, I believe. Turned right, then started heading toward downtown, but I turned right on 10th. And as I was walking, I was stopped in my tracks. I actually made a call to a friend of mine. I was stopped in my tracks because there was this clear, a voice but not a voice. And I'll never forget it. No matter what, it's going to be okay. Trust me. No matter what, it's going to be okay. Trust me. And then with this whole COVID relief thing, that I popped that out of you on the blue, right? I mean, I popped it on my family, and are you sure you want to do this, Dad? And they all got behind it, but with all those silly videos and stuff, and for me to actually have, and we all have this, but for me to actually, with 100% confidence, knew in a couple times in my life, God has spoken directly to me. And I don't think everybody gets to experience it. I don't know, maybe they do. But my ears were open, so maybe that's why I was able to hear better. Maybe he does speak to everybody, but my ears are open. And I was able to hear.
Jesus said very often, "He who has ears, let him hear."
Isn't it?
Meaning everybody's got ears, but not everybody's got ears to hear.
Have you ever had an experience like that?
I have. I had one, yeah.
Mid-90s.
Things were falling apart in my life, and somebody that I really trusted betrayed me, and I was at my wit's end.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't want to share those details with anybody close to me because I didn't want to disappoint the people close to me.
Yeah.
And was alone in a dark room, just at the end of my rope. Didn't know what to do. And I felt a voice, I guess.
That's a better way to put it. Yeah.
This was, "Fear not, for I am with thee."
Oh man,
that's what I heard. And
that's unbelievable, man.
I was just like, "Yeah, but this sucks." And he was like, "Fear not, I am with thee." And I didn't get answers of how that would
that's so
be
cool.
manifested.
You never told me that, have you?
I didn't tell you that. But
wow. Okay. Well, I shared my whole life with you, but hey, if you were
mine didn't even begin to compare to.
We're not comparing here.
No, I mean, but that was just something
it did,
that everybody see. Well,
it did.
Trust
me, it did.
A lot of people. I remember Jim O'Brien telling me one time when they went
former
to
basketball coach
when they went to the Final Four. There he is on the wall, Coach O'Brien, Mayor of Brackettville. That was quite an interesting story that he lost his wife Christine very suddenly. She'd had cancer and seemingly recovered, and then went for a jog and had a heart attack and passed away quite suddenly. And he's left with 2 young daughters. And he leaves Boston, comes to Ohio State, has a dreadful team his first year. He inherited nothing. And the next year they go to the Final Four. And he's on the court in Knoxville, which was painted red by Ohio State fans taking over the place. They beat St. John's, an old Big East rival of his.
That, yeah.
And he's out there. This was back in the Falcons in the Super Bowl days when the Dirty Bird was big, the dance.
Yeah.
And he's out there on the floor doing Dirty Bird, and his daughters are hugging him. And so that Sunday, the next day, Bob Baptist and I got together with him in the locker room at Ohio State, and the subject turned to like this arc of his life, and this, the low point. Now he's on the pinnacle of his coaching career at that point. And he said, he didn't really want to talk about that. And I said, you understand when you get to the Final Four Thursday in St. Petersburg, everybody's going to want to talk about that, because that's quite a story. It's a story of your life. And he said, I just don't understand that because a lot of people have gone through what I've gone through.
I say the same thing.
And while it is very hard to go through what Coach O'Brien went through, what Chris went through, and
what you went
maybe
through,
even what I went through.
it's very hard. I know what you're talking about. It's awful.
A lot of people do go through it. They do.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how people go through it without the presence of God.
I have no idea. I have that conversation often with my bride now, Carrie, and she's had her, like all of us, like everybody out there has had her going through something. And the first thing she says is, God carried me, you know. And I just want to encourage people that if you are going through something now, just trust. I know it seems like, oh, that's so easy to say. Just it ain't about me. It's not about Bruce. What Bruce says. It's not about what I say. It's our experience that we understand. The other thing that when I talk to people who lose their wives or lose their husbands or lose partners or whatever it is, I talk to everybody, right? And here's the one thing I say. Here's the one thing I can promise you, and I'm talking that whatever you're feeling, you're not alone. Because that was the feeling that I had. And I'm sure you had that.
Yep.
Nobody could possibly understand the depth of my pain. And if we biblically put it to the test, that was the whole reason God became man, so that he lived every depth of our pain.
He understood.
Every temptation.
Every temptation. Yeah.
Yes, and he overcame that. And so you can overcome that. And the verse I have today is talking about who you are as a people. I might as well share it now. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And I put on the screen the verse that we've cited very often, and that thing is like, if you're looking for that strength, you do have to invite God into your life.
Yeah.
You can't just like I hear a lot of people say, God won't give you more than you can handle. And I've made this point before, and I just can't underscore it enough. He does give you more than you can handle, so you'll need him.
Yes.
So you'll cry out to him.
That's
why things seem to spin out of control in our life, is because he so prizes and treasures a relationship with you that he's calling you to him. And he crafts the circumstances of your life to bring you to him. It's not that he causes bad things, but it's that he's there and he loves you so much that he wants to provide that comfort in your life.
Here's who you are. And this is from Galatians 4:7. You're no longer a slave, but a son and a daughter. And since you are a son and a daughter, God has also made you an heir. You're in.
Yeah.
And that just being like, it could be a verse. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I read through verses. I read this one this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really grasp the meaning, and I know what it's like to be a slave to fear, be a slave to football, be a slave to anxiety. I've been a slave to all those.
Yeah.
I'm an heir.
Yeah, and a slave to self-sufficiency. I know in the early stages, and you write about that in the book, that you had a struggle surrendering.
Ego and pride, my friend, gotten away. Ego and pride.
It's very common.
It's never gotten in your way.
Very common. It's very common to men. It is. Men, we're fixers. We're fixers, right? We always get in trouble with the women we love when we don't just listen, but offer a fix. And a lot of times they just want to hear, just want you to listen.
Yeah. I got it. What do you need? What do you need?
All right, do this.
I'm going to do it now, too.
Now, what else? Yeah. So there we are. Yeah. So we hope that strengthens you guys as we head toward Friday podcast, which we expect today. The Big Ten will meet. They'll come up with some plan. The easy plan is just, okay, Ohio State doesn't play, but so what? They're going to play in the Big Ten title game. And that should take care of it.
Check mark them. Check mark through.
I don't know why it wouldn't. That seems to me to make a ton of sense. So
what a cool day we had today.
We did have a cool day. I
Sorry for taking it that way, but
No, don't be sorry. This podcast has been great for a number of reasons. The $40,000, the fact that we get to share our faith, the fact we get affirming emails from people. It's grown our friendship, which I thought our friendship was pretty strong and stuff, but it's grown our friendship.
yeah.
So
And you
cool.
actually call me back now, which has been the biggest benefit that I've received.
No, still need to drop out of conversations I'm in when you call me and take your calls priority. That's the next step.
Not one time when I told you to be on call.
No, we never forgot that, and nor should we. We didn't get to a lot of the sponsor ads today, but you guys know about Hemisphere and you know what they can do for you, and hopefully you know Willis Spangler Starling. So patronize our sponsors; they're really good people. You'll be glad that you met them, and you should want to patronize good people, and they are all good people. So we appreciate their support. Have a great day. One last week of COVID-19 winners, so get them in. Spielman Hooley Podcast, gmail.com.